Unfortunately, the Democratic leader in this chamber, the senator from New York, is showing anything but that kind of leadership right now. He's demonstrated a complete unwillingness to tone down the rhetoric of his party or to make actually even good faith gestures toward good governance. In fact, this very week, he's demonstrating just how far he's willing to go to undermine basic governance in order to appease his radical base. He'd rather shut down the government than work across the aisle for the benefit of the American people. Senate Democrats have so far refused to even vote on a simple stopgap measure that will give us a little more time, about 9 weeks, to negotiate full-year government funding. If they do not relent in this partisan posturing, the result will be forever known as the Schumer shutdown. Now, you don't have to take it from me on what a government shutdown would mean for the American people. All we have to do is to read back to them the very words that the Senate Democrats have said in the past. In September of last year, when the shoe was on the other foot, Senator Schumer said, and I quote, "If the government shuts down, it will be average Americans who suffer the most." He also said, a government shutdown means seniors who rely on Social Security could be thrown into chaos. Is this even the same individual that's taking the position that's heading us toward a shutdown in the coming days? Last September, he went so far as to even say, keeping the government open will mean no poison pills or reckless partisan posturing. This is what he said just last year about a government shutdown. Where is that man today? Today, I'll tell you, he's engaging in a reckless partisan posturing while Republicans are proposing a responsible alternative. Again, this is not a vote on a permanent policy, but rather a stopgap measure to get us to a place where we need to be when it comes to the appropriations process. But he's willing to impose the very costs that he warned about on the American people and our seniors in order to score political points with his progressive radical base. The hypocrisy is obvious and it's staggering. Madam President, it's a time for reckoning for our friends in the Democratic Party. They seem to not really know what they stand for these days, except opposition to each and everything that the majority party or the president wants, even when it's in their self-interest to do so. They need to look at themselves in the mirror and decide what and who they stand for. Are they going to be the party of violence and lawlessness and a degradation in public safety? Are they going to continue to this, what has been called frighteningly, an assassination culture? Will they continue down this mad path of taking the lives of those they disagree with and siding with the criminals over law enforcement personnel that are simply enforcing laws they have themselves helped write? And will they continue on prioritizing their ideology ahead of responsible governance? I often wonder how our friends on the other side of the aisle would react if they had to live in crime-ridden neighborhoods, overtaken by gangs and drug dealers, and they had to wait 20 or 30 minutes before any police officer responded to their calls for help after an assault or a robbery. How would they feel? Well, I'm quite sure, I'm confident that they would change their tune. And just like current residents in blue cities who've had to suffer under the weight of failed Democratic soft-on-crime policing policies, they would gladly welcome additional police protection and efforts to clean up and stabilize their neighborhoods. But sadly, most Democrats, at least so far, here in Washington, D.C., have appeared to be completely tone deaf and rarely hear the true voices of the people whose lives they assume they represent, people living in these inner cities. Well, regardless of what Democrats decide to stand for, Republicans will continue to be the party that respects free and open discussion of ideas. And we will continue to support our law enforcement officers, men and women, who risk their lives day in and day out so that Texans and all Americans can sleep soundly in their beds. And we'll continue to be the party that opposes reckless partisan tactics that put ideology ahead of the needs of the American people. Republicans have made it clear under President Trump that we will enforce the rule of law. That is non-negotiable. So it's no surprise that the American people overwhelmingly voted for Republican leadership last November. If Democrats continue to head down this path of violence and division, they should not be surprised if they continue to experience the same outcome at the ballot box in the upcoming midterms as they did last November in the general election. Madam President, I yield the floor.